For us, first playable is critical. It's the point in the project and the development cycle where sort of all our hopes and dreams and our thoughts and everything else that we think we're going to be able to get in the game can either be realized or we get, you know, a nice slap in the face that says this is going to be impossible to do. So for us, what first playable is typically getting a large section of the game up and running to a finished state, which winds up for us being what we'll wind up turning into our demo that we'll wind up shipping out in the fall.
First playable, to myself and I think to a lot of the guys on the team, is what we think about is the first time that people outside of the studio are going to get their hands on the game. They're going to be able to touch it. So it's really a first impression to anyone outside of our company. We go through a series of milestone and checkpoints building up to that first playable software, where we're touching the product a lot. Again, we're iterating on a lot of things, and we sort of take things from a prototype stage, figure out what's going to be good, what we can move away from, what we can build on, and then it's really taking that prototype and building it into something that's probably going to be pretty representative of what's going to end up in terms of gameplay in the final product.
So here we are showing the first playable of Need for Speed Underground 2, and the really big change that we're doing this year is we're giving you a complete open world to drive within. And so one of the first things we had to prove out is how do we build an environment that supports an open world? How do we provide shops that players can go to? How do we engage in races? Where do you find your opponents? All of those things. So we took a stab at that. We took one of the regions of the world and built it up to a pretty good level visually, and then started adding all of the other elements we needed. So you can see there's a mini map here on the screen that tells you all the different roads you can drive on, and different things within the world have their own icons. So you can drive through the world and locate those different things.
So it's taking the prototype stage and working forward towards something that's the first time someone outside the studio is going to play. So we really want to show what's new in the game, where we've innovated on, what are some of the areas that we think are going to be big features of the game, and things that the dev team is really excited about. For Underground 2, without a doubt, that was the open world environment. In Underground 1, we had one big city that was built. The only thing was we weren't able to get to a point where we were actually able to drive all across the city from place to place in an interconnected fashion. So this year the world is huge and we are able to do that, and I think that was the first thing that we wanted to show with the first playable software, just show people how much work had gone into the title already and sort of how much it had grown from the first version of the game. Again, it's the first time people are going to touch the product, and we really want to deliver something that can stand on its own as a phenomenal gameplay experience.
So we had to consider, how does the player select vehicles? How do they find different cars to choose between? So what we've done here is we've created different types of shops in the world. This particular shop here is where you can go to the car lot and select different cars. So we'll jump in there and take a look at what vehicles we can choose from here. So here we are in the car lot, choosing from different vehicles in the game. So we wanted to prove out, what this would look like and what choices the player has. So right here they're choosing from some presets of the new rides in the game. And we'll go ahead and select the one that we like and jump back into racing here.
When we know we're doing a sequel, the cool thing is to work with really talented people, so they've got ideas that we couldn't realize in Underground 1 that they had already set in motion for Underground 2. So these guys start gathering reference material, and they sit down with the art director, and they start talking about what is it they want to accomplish and what is the look that they want to create for the game. That, coupled with the feedback that we get from consumers, helps decide the direction.
So here we are in our new car that we picked. We've located one of the shops, and we're going to go try to find some events in the world. So Underground 2 is all about uncovering the tuner culture in the world and discovering events and shops and all the different things you can do. And so you might notice we're coming upon something here in the world, and you can go investigate what it is, use your messaging system to engage that, and this tells you what type of event you found and gives you some details on what you might want to do in the game. So we're going to go ahead and accept a circuit race. So if you accept the race, you get a nice scene of a start line and fly girls sending you off. Your competitors are in the world now and all in their tricked out cars, and you're off. And so part of what we had to deal with is Are these races just complete random races through the world, or are they somewhat track-based? So you can see that it's all existing in the world as it was when you were free driving through it, but there are some temporary barriers that kind of tell you the path that you're going to follow for this particular race. So we also tried to give each area of the city a unique driving style. So this particular area is somewhat twisty with a lot of elevation changes, kind of a roller coaster feel through here, as well as some shortcuts that you can discover.
One of the things last year when we were working sort of with a lot of the feedback we got through reviews, working with the media, through fans, was talking a lot about the career mode. And career mode last year ended up being a fairly linear experience. There was some choices within the game progression. The presentation also played a little bit of a factor in that. So that's one of the things we wanted to change a little bit this year in the career mode. We wanted to give the user a lot more choice in terms of what events he was able to play and his choice and where he wanted to play those events. Also the race types. So last year you were forced to go through the career mode and play through every single event. You had to play through all the race types. This year we want to make it a unique experience to each player. So you can go and start your career mode and end up playing through a completely different set of events or sequence of events than myself, than your other friend, which is a cool aspect of the game. So there's a lot of replay value in the career mode this year. You can actually go through and get a completely different experience playing it your second time through.
Also, another thing we were proving out in this first playable was a new way that we're using NOS this year. So you still have your NOS meter from last year, but now another thing that's tied into it are the style moments that happen. So as you power slide through the world, as you get big air, close calls with traffic, this all contributes to adding to your NOS meter and actually becomes a race breaker. And what that means is if you go beyond 100% of the NOS that you can hold, you start getting this race breaker NOS, which is effectively double the power of regular NOS. So you can drive with style, you can do stunts, you can have close calls, you don't have to drive an absolute perfect race, and you get benefited, your style gets benefited to you by adding to your NOS meter. So it's pretty cool because you can effectively refill your NOS while you're racing. So it's a big change for this year, and it makes a different dynamic to how you race the races. Another area that we focus on in the first playable is what the drive is like. So what is the player going to experience? What style of racing are they going to drive during this first playable? So we focus on the actual path that the player is going to drive on, the shape of the roads, the elevation, the smoothness, the surfaces, things of that nature. And then we kind of block in the environment. So we aren't necessarily putting a lot of detail into the world at this point. We're really focused on the path that the player is going to drive and what their experience is going to be like. Later, when we like how that drive is, we keep the road locked and we start building out the rest of the environment, adding all of the other elements that you would expect in an existing city.
Another thing that sort of came back on the feedback of the career mode last year was things like, again, you had to complete every single event. This year, you're going to be able to advance through the career mode. It'll be sort of your choice. If you want to be able to finish sort of, 10 of 15 events and still be able to progress through, you're going to be able to do that. But on the same note, if you really want to get through and do every single event in the career, that choice is there for the player as well this year. So again, it was taking the feedback, figuring out what worked well, what were things we can improve on, and really try and give the player that and improve upon that for Underground 2. At the same time, the story mode goes through a lot of feedback on the story and how the characters played into the story, how impactful they were, where people wanted to see sort of the motivation and the story fit in with the career this year. And again, it's just working through those things and figuring out how we can fit that motivation in throughout the career path and make it worth sense, make people actually want to watch the FMV sequences and sort of get to know the characters and feel like they play a part of that career mode experience.
So the focus this year and with this first playable was to keep the player driving as much as possible. So we're not having you go through menus to select tracks and things of that nature. So the messaging system will come up. You'll see an icon that you have a message from someone in the world, and you can go ahead and select that. In this case, one character is telling you some of the things you can do to control your car and to get these different messages. You can also get event messages, challenges, all types of things. So you don't have to sort of leave the game, go through some menuing system to choose a different race. You can actually find out, hey, there's a new race in a different part of the city. It'll come up on your mini-map, and you can go find that race. Or perhaps someone, tuner car ahead of you, is challenging you to a race. You can get messages about that. So it's just a quick way to give the player information while allowing them to keep driving in the open world.